Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Old Scribes. And we're pleased and honored to have with us today as our special guest the voice of the Aggies, New Mexico State Aggies, Jack Nixon, who is retiring after 45 years at the helm. Covered a lot of great games and a lot of great teams, and worked with a lot of great coaches. So, Jack, immense pleasure to have you here. My partner, Matthew Aguilar, even though he's a UTEP guy, you'll have to bear with him, but looking forward to some conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, John Teicher's a good friend of mine, and he's a UTEP guy too, so I think I'll be okay. I think we'll be okay.
So, tell me, what was it like the other night, your last game at the Pan American Center, calling the game there?
Well, the night was perfect, frankly, and I think because of that, the fact that it really was going to be my last game in there probably distracted me from being too focused on that because and I'll describe why it was perfect in a second, but one of the toughest things I think I've discovered about retiring from something is mentally letting go of it, because you're used to it and you enjoy the projecting maybe next, as you're going through it, you think, well, next football season, I'm going to be doing this and we're going to be going there and this will happen. And I think we're going to beat this team and this is going to be whatever. And, that's kind of what, at least that's how I've done it. I have to stop myself and say, no, there's not going to be any of that next year. You're going to be, enjoying things, but you're not going to be preparing. You're not going to be broadcasting. So the night was very nice. My nephew came down from Elkhorn, Nebraska. And a friend of mine from high school who lives in New York, he came back, and another friend from college came down from Kansas City. Another friend from college came over from Phoenix, and an old flame came back too. Anyway,
oh well,
interesting.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
Really. So at halftime they had a very nice. Back in October, the six-man club, which is the basketball booster support group. Each sport has their own kind of booster group. That there's a big booster group, and then each sport has their own. So anyway, I'm the MC for that dinner, and they put together an incredibly nice tribute video that was, well, I thought kind of long, but no one else, people were nice about it. It's about 10, 12 minutes long. I think it's on YouTube, with players and coaches saying, nice things about me. And I didn't know that was coming up, and I was, really touched. Anyway, they did it. They edited that down to a couple 3 minutes, and then they gave me a couple minutes to speak, and so I said what I had to say, and then they gave me a plaque, and then the Aggies went on and won the game in kind of fairly easy style, so it was not a nerve-wracking, come back to down to the end. So that was kind of nice. Then afterwards, I had asked. This was amazing. I had talked to. There's a restaurant. Well, Matt may have been to La Posta in the Mesilla restaurant.
Oh yeah.
I know
the Hutchinsons have La Posta, and they're they're super nice people. And I knew this before this evening, so I had called out there and I said, there's going to be a group of about 10 of us who would like to come by. This is going to be my last game, blah blah, and we'd like to come by maybe around 8. And just have dinner if there's could be a spot just for us to, kind of, be obnoxious and do what we're going to do to enjoy this. And they said, yeah, no problem. So we get out there. Well, they put aside a room, but they've done a banner. Congratulations, Jack, your fans at La Posta. They gave me a real nice, expensive bottle of tequila that they had brewed for their 85th anniversary.
Wow.
I don't know. They don't sell fifths anymore, but it was whatever took the place of a fifth. I know, but it is old Scribes. Some would use old terms, but a big bottle of tequila, and they comped everyone's meal. They said, you don't have to pay for your meal. Take care of your server, which, which I know I was so touched, because I just said, well, just a place for us to hang out, but no, they insisted on doing that. So Tom and Jareen Hutchinson, such a kind gesture. So anyway, and we had a nice time, and we all, had a good time, and afterwards, and then because of all the just the wonderful and throughout the wonderful things that happened, I think it distracted me from being, too emotional over having the last game, and I have a feeling when my absolute last game comes that it'll be. I'm going to miss it. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not. I've done it for 45 years, and I still like doing it, but I just physically, I'm just too worn down to do it, for another year. I'm not ill. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ill, but it's tough traveling to these little places, and the Aggies go places that are kind of hard to get to now.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm sure that the final impact will hit me a little harder. But it was just a wonderful night, so it kind of kept me from being too upset.
Oh, that's awesome.
45 years is a long time. Do you remember the first day walking into, onto New Mexico State campus, and did you think you would be there that long?
Yes and no. I remember the first time I came into the Pan Am Center. It was on my interview, and I flew down from Nebraska and met the owner of the station, a guy named Walt Rubens, and Keith Colson, who was the athletic director at the time, and Joe Lopez, who was the financial officer. I'm not sure what his title was, but it was a much simpler. This is 1976, so much simpler time in terms of administration of an athletic department. There was mostly, women's sports really very little bit more than intramurals. They were kind of coming into their own at that time, and kind of really grew up quite a bit during the 70s through the end of the 70s. So anyway, Joe was there, and the guy who gave me a ride from the airport was a fellow named Alan Moore. And Alan was the program director at the radio station. And I'll get to the Pan Am Center in just a second, but I want to tell you this story. And so Alan was a fellow who, when he was a young man, had polio, and so he walked on crutches. So I knew I was meeting Alan Moore. I had no idea who he was. So I get off the plane, and I'm all eager. I'm happy. You're going to love me. I'm going to get this job, and you're going to want me the most of all. And so I'm going to be, and I think a friendly person anyway, but I want to make sure I really schmoozed it up with whoever was going to talk to, because I was excited about this. I was 26 years old. So I see a guy in the back on crutches. This is when you could come up to the gate and meet people in the plane. So I'm waiting and waiting. And then finally this guy on the crutches comes forward. I'm Alan Moore. Oh, hi, Alan. I'm thinking, why are you on crutches? No, don't ask that. Don't ask that. Then I'm wondering, how are we going to get to Las Cruces, because I know that you drive there. Well, he had a lever in the car, so we get up there. Anyway, we have a nice lunch. We go up to the Pan Am. They said, we're not going to show you the old football stadium, because the first 2 years I was there, they were in the old stadium, which is now gone. We're going to show you the Pan Am Center. So we go in there, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking about all the times back in Nebraska where I had to crawl into the high school gym to find the phone line, to connect it, to broadcast the games. There's some little high school game from Geneva, Nebraska, back to Hastings, and this is a modern arena. Oh my golly! So, okay, time to go back to the radio station. Joe and Keith go their own way, and Walt and Alan and I are going to go in Walt's car. So I get in the front, and Alan's getting in the back, and Walt thinks everyone's in the car. Steps on the gas. Suddenly we hear, Walt, stop! Well, Walt's dragging Alan through the parking lot. And so I'm thinking, what? Is this funny? Am I shocked? What? And Walt turns to me and goes, oh, you're going to have a lot of fun working here. We run over cripples and just have a lot of fun. So I thought, okay, I guess I'm in. So anyway, that was the first time I saw the Pan Am Center. As far as my first game, maybe perhaps a more basketball-related memory. Well, I mean, I went to practice in there, but my first broadcast was against a team called Lubbock Christian, who was, a smaller division team, and the Aggies beat them pretty easily. And so that was my first game, actual broadcast in the Pan Am Center.
Right. Did you do high school football those first couple of years?
Yeah, no, I did. In fact, George, I have a tape of your game, one of your games.
Oh, that's what George was getting at.
I've got
one.
I hope it wasn't a bad one.
Well, it was against Clovis. I don't know. I can email it to you if you want to, throw your in-laws with days of your, and Roddy Bowen.
Send it to me too, please.
Oh,
yeah, we lost. Sure. We lost that one 14-7.
That's true.
But they were the eventual state champions, so we put up a good fight. We gave it the old Mayfield try.
I'm seriously, if you'd like to have it, I'll email it to you. But no, I did high school games, and Cruces was coming off the year, I guess, when they won it. Is that right?
Right. They won it in 75.
Yeah, yeah. And so my first year was 76. So I did 2 years of that in the old stadium. And then I remember, then 1 year, I guess, in the new stadium. And then on after that, a couple years too. So, yeah.
So what?
Yeah, those were the good old days.
Yeah, those.
Yeah. Old days,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, there's been over the years, there was, I remember so much specifically between UTEP and NMSU, certainly a very intense rivalry, even though, football wise, not much success for either program. But what would you say, is the most interesting UTEP NMSU moment that you've seen in your 45 years, whether it be football, basketball?
Boy, that's tough. My first year, I don't know. I'll give you 2 or 3, and you can figure out how interesting they are. First year, Aggies beat UTEP on the last play of the game when a guy named Larry Skipper Vernon kicked the field goal at Old Aggie Memorial Stadium, and I remember it was the second game of the year. I remember very clearly that the ball went through the uprights, and then it ricochets off the art building because the art building was right behind the stadium. A guy named Dennis Owens returns an interception 100 yards for a touchdown. I want to say 80. I want to say 80. Bill Young was the coach at UTEP then.
Yeah.
The first game at Aggie Memorial Stadium was crazy. The Aggies got way ahead in the first half. Then there was a torrential rainstorm, and everyone, damn near everyone left. The Aggies wind up winning 35-32. None of these are going to be where UTEP wins, Matt. So if you think there's going to be one where Oscar, someone ran for a touchdown beating the Aggies, is not going to happen in this podcast. And then the other one that comes to mind off the top of my head was when Cody Ledbetter hits Brian Pazula with a pass, like a 2-yard pass, with maybe like 16 seconds left, and the Aggies went down in the Sun Bowl. And those are the ones that the tightest ones. One other that might be worth mentioning is if you remember, the series was interrupted for a couple years in the mid 80s, late 80s.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly why, but it was something that, of course, Aggie fans blamed UTEP for not wanting to play them. I don't remember exactly why, but but it was UTEP's fault. And then the teams play again at Aggie Memorial Stadium, and the Aggies just blew them out. Remember, Rich Glover Jr. returned an interception for a touchdown, and it was a blowout. So basketball, Miko Nopola making free throws at the end of the game to win down in El Paso. Miko was like a 46% free throw shooter, and they fouled him, and he makes both of them, and the Aggies win by 1. Jabari Rice hitting the buzzer shot to beat UTEP down there 3 or 4 years ago. The game this year down there when the Aggies blew them out, then of course UTEP came back and won in Cruces. But those are the ones I guess that the basketball. Although the Aggies have had a more one-sided through the last through the Jans and so forth era.
Yeah.
Most of the games generally, I guess either that or just my memory's bad, which is entirely possible. The football ones seem to have the cataclysmic endings to it. The basketball ones generally kind of seem to be decided unless it's a blowout one way or the other. So that's the best I got for you on basketball.
I do remember that in '92, both teams made the Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was, I remember the whole region was pretty pumped about that and kind of watching each other's games a little bit. Yeah,
because UTEP beat Kansas, I believe, did they not?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my alma mater. So it's like, God damn. Anyway,
that's a double whammy for you.
If I remember this correctly, and again, I may not, but the Aggies had made it to the Sweet 16 first. Just in terms of like
timing,
a day before or a few hours before.
Yes, that
was over in Phoenix, and then UTEP makes it too. It's like, oh damn, because it was kind of like our special thing is spoiled again by UTEP. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and that was. NMSU then went on to play in the pit. And that was an incredible. Were you at that game, George? Were you gone by then?
Yeah, I actually was working for Newsday in New York,
Mm.
and they sent me to cover the game, so I got to cover that game. And I just remember the roar.
Yeah, that's what I was
when
going
the
to say.
When the Aggies came out of the tunnel. I don't think I've ever heard a louder roar.
Same here.
Than
And
the
the Aggies
sound
came
of
out,
that.
and they were laden with the New Mexico flag, and the pit really did go nuts. So I would agree with you. I was going to ask you if you remember that. Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even Lobo fans, I think, would have acknowledged that to me too.
Mm-hmm. It was funny during that game. I'm looking up in the stands and I see my 8th grade science teacher from middle school. He's in the stands rooting on the Lobos.
No,
It's just Shoemaker, right? Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, but that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. That was a special memory.
Yeah.
So you had a couple of other careers you were trying to pursue when you were young. Before you got into the whole broadcasting thing, you had the accordion going and
sorry.
a little bit of the guitar. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, okay. This was okay when I was like 10 years old, and I think that my mother decided that it was good for me to learn music, which I think is very good for kids. I agree with that. She got me an accordion for Christmas, and you're thinking, oh, what's going to be cool for Christmas? Maybe a bike, maybe something else. No, here's an accordion. Oh boy! So I learned how to play I could see I was not going to get out of this. So I learned how to play the accordion. I practiced for maybe 3 or 4 years. And to do this, my mother had to drive me from our home was in sort of central Omaha at the time, and near the Exarban racetrack. If anyone in the audience knows where the Exarban racetrack was, and so we had to drive to South Omaha, where the stockyards were, to go to Johnny Swoboda's accordion studio. And so, which was like, I don't know, probably a 30-minute drive each way. But Mom was a good mom, so we did this. And so anyway, and I could see that this was not really going to. But by the time, I'm like 13 years old now, and I've been practicing for 4 years, and I'm kind of catching on to girls and kind of what maybe girls might like or not like. And I kind of understood that even though Johnny Swoboda was really sold on the accordion and having an accordion band of 60 people playing in unison sounded cool in South Omaha, I just could see this was not going to get me very far, at least socially. So.
It's chick magnet stuff. Yeah.
Well, that was my theory. Anyway, the Beatles came around in 1963, so I said, can I switch? Can I learn the guitar? Because that seemed really cooler. So they said, well, all right. So they got me a guitar that you had to be basically Hulk Hogan to push the strings down, but I stuck with that. And then another Christmas, another Christmas wish came through. They got me a guitar that was much easier to play. And a friend of mine from who I'd grown up with, his dad had a music store. It was an organ store, so he learned the drums. And so then I finally got to where I could had a nicer guitar. And 2 other guys from our junior high, the Johnson brothers, joined the band. And then there was a young, well, I guess she was a girl then. I'm not sure but this is old Scribes, so there may be some old terms in here, folks. So please don't get mad. A girl named Connie Canuso, who played keyboards, was also at our junior high. Well, so we started in, 9th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, practicing and rehearsing. And we debuted at the organ store. And I was so nervous. I was ill the night before, just from nerves. And, we're not sure we can do it. He's sick. And maybe have to cancel it. No, the show must go on. Anyway, so I got over it, and I don't know, I got some soup or something. So then we performed that night. And, I think it was like probably 3 months before we got an actual paying job. But, we loved it. So it was fun. And then actually the Johnsons went to a different high school. I went to Omaha Central. They went to South, but we stayed together, and we would practice every weekend. And we might get a job. The Shades is what we called ourselves. And we all wore sunglasses. We looked like, various Roy Orbisons in different sizes. The
Blues Brothers before the Blues Brothers, right?
Yeah, from Omaha. and we wore paisley shirts. This was the '60s. We were paisley, and we had we didn't. It wasn't an endorsement thing, but there was a clothing store in Omaha that would sort of kind of sponsor a band, and they would give you the clothes to wear, and they would take a picture of you and put an ad in the like there was a youth section of the Omaha paper that ran on Friday. It was a peach colored section, and you would have your picture in the paper, and then you would perform in the clothing store on Saturdays downtown. Now, admittedly, this is not the Hollywood Bowl or Madison Square Garden, but, it's the Omaha, it's the Nebraska clothing store. And so, but you were in the paper. And so, maybe, I don't know. I mean, looking back realistically, maybe 30 or 40 people came, and some kids from high school and some other people who were down there. And so you got an hour. So we played our A material for an hour, and we got asked back. You could only be asked back once. So we got asked back, which is a tremendous, and then you got your picture in the paper again. So we were able to snag jobs maybe once a month, maybe, and it paid $25 total. And the best job we had, was at a Creighton medical fraternity. And because they could pay us a little more money. They paid us $50. So, we're walking tall now. $10 in 1966 was, you could go to the movies with a date. You could go out for
Big
burgers.
money.
Anyway, trying to add to the oldness of the old Scribes. So this medical fraternity, and they had dates that were good looking. They're going to be doctors. And so they were, in their 20s, and the dates were all good looking, and they're drinking, and we're playing, and they're loving our stuff, because I don't know how we were a cover band. We were a cover band. We didn't write our own material or anything. We played songs. I should have said that up front. And so anyway, so we got more money, and one guy said he could play the guitar and do Twist and Shout. So I said, go ahead. So we let him play the guitar, and he played Twist and Shout. So anyway, so we got over big with them. After the Shades broke up, I went back there with another band, and same story, great date, great looking dates. And the guy wanted to play Twist and Shout again. I said, sure. Anyway, so the Shades broke up when the drummer got his girlfriend pregnant, and they married, and they raised and stayed together. And, so it was not a sad music tragedy like so many have been. But Greg Critchett was his name. He passed in pancreatic cancer, and his first daughter was named Barbara Ann. He loved the Beach Boys. And so the daughter's name was Barbara Ann, and then his son's name was Greg Critchett Jr. Wow. But anyway, the Shades broke up, and then I broke with another band, and then that broke up in another controversy. But that's probably enough on that.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is.
Thank you.
How'd you make your way to Las Cruces in New Mexico State?
Well, I don't know, fate. I had been, I think I mentioned before, I got there when I was 26 years old, and I was so stupid, I think is the word. I thought.
Aren't we all at 26?
Perhaps. I thought that my career had ended, that I was getting nowhere. I mean, and I was so fortunate to get that job at 26. I mean, obviously the irony, but I had been working for the 73-74 season. I was working at a gospel station in a little town outside of Orlando called Apopka, Florida, which I'm sure is much nicer now. But I was doing the Rollins College games. Rollins is a school in Winter Park. It's kind of a rich kid's school, and they had their coach. They wanted to have good basketball, and they hired Ed Jucker. Now, Ed Jucker was a fellow who was the coach at the University of Cincinnati after Oscar Robertson, and they won 2 NCAA titles. And the pressure had gotten to Coach Jucker, and he had retired. Well, they brought him out of retirement, and he was from Cincinnati, so I got 2 or 3 guys from Cincinnati, and he was a great coach. So I was doing these games, driving over to Winter Park and doing these games, and working with this guy who was this legend coach at the time. And anyway, the season ended, and the job ended, and they played in the tournament, a Division II tournament in Norfolk, Virginia, hosted by Old Dominion. So anyway, the season ended. I drove back to Nebraska, and was looking for a job and got hired out in the middle of the state in a town called Hastings. And back then, Peterson magazines published. People read magazines back then, and Peterson Publishing did college football magazine, college basketball magazine, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The college basketball magazine had the schedules of all the schools, or all the D1 schools in the back. And in most cases, they had the listings of the radio and the TV stations, or sometimes TV, but radio stations who carried the games. So this was my reference point. So I thought, well, I was in Hastings for a year. Got to get out. I'm in Hastings. I'm going, I've got this little town. And I went back there, and it's the same. It's the same. I think 20,000 people that are there. It's exactly the same. It's a typical Nebraska, whatever. I won't go off into that. So anyway, so I've been trying to get out of there for a year, and tried to. Can I go to Des Moines from Hastings? No. Well, yeah, but no job. Boise. I tried to find markets I could realistically jump to. Boise, no job. Reno, no job. So I was looking at the back. Here's New Mexico State. KOBE. Carried the games at 14:50 a.m. And this was after the 4th of July. And I'm all, woe is me. I'm doomed. Another year of crawling around gym floors in Harvard, Nebraska, and going to places where there's no press box and broadcasting behind the pep band, because in these places. And they had American Legion baseball there. And I mean, you did like 150 games a year. You either, I guess, improved, or you thought, oh, I'm so sick of this. Well, so I don't know if I improved in that, but I was ready to get out of that town. Anyway, so I thought it was after the 4th of July, and I thought, well, should I call there? Well, in 1976, long distance calls were kind of expensive. You just, now it's nothing, but back then it was like $5-6. I thought, oh, they can't tell you no if you don't call them. Well, they were looking for, it was Alan Moore, the guy who I would meet later on. Oh, yeah, we have an opening. So it was fate, I guess. And so anyway, one thing led to another. And you've heard the story of my hiring. And so then there I was.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wow. And so did you kind of, certainly different landscape, different scenery in Las Cruces than Nebraska? I mean, did you kind of get used to things quickly, or how did you adjust?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I was so happy to get this job. There could have been open sulfur, holes around the town, and it wouldn't have polluted the area. It wouldn't have mattered to me. But Cruces was great. The weather was great, and back then there were cotton fields within the city limits. Believe it or not, I mean, not huge ones, but you could see that. And we know when November came, it was like, oh man. Well, why did they wait this long? A couple of things that I had no problem getting used to. It was just different. Was, people at the radio station said, "Well, do you like Mexican food?" I said, "Well, I've had tacos, but food in Nebraska is pretty bland." I said, "No," and they said, "Well, come with us. We'll get you some Mexican food." So okay. So we go to it was when El Sombrero was behind the Welcome Inn, George, downtown. El Sombrero is still there, but it was at a different location.
It's awesome still.
Yeah, it is. And so I said, okay, so we go there, and I go, well, what do I order? They go, well, we'll order red enchiladas. Okay, so get red enchiladas. And it was the strange. I still think about it, how strange it was. I liked the taste of the food, but it was so painful to eat.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, it kind of tastes good, but I can't do it. So I got through like a quarter of the plate. I'm all, gringoed out from corn buff from Nebraska, but I went back. It's like Rocky going back. Give me another round. So I think after 4 or 5 tries, I could get through a whole plate of red enchiladas, and it's still. I mean, and not just be able to walk away and not just be in agony. And then, oh yeah, I was hooked. I love Mexican food. The spicier, the better. I love Cajun food. I love spicy food. But the people down there, I mean, people at the radio station were all nice, and everyone's so easygoing. And I caught on early on that people really did like New Mexico State, and they just really had a good feeling about it. And the guy at the radio, Walt Rubens, the fellow at the radio station, he felt very strongly in journalism. He was on the AP board of directors, and he felt very strongly in journalism, and he said, "Look, I don't want you being all we're the greatest, hooray for us. When you do this, he wanted me to be objective in calling the games.
Huh?
And if I had to do interviews like post game with the coach, he didn't want me to, be adversarial or be angry, but we wanted people to feel that they were getting an honest account from me. And so that was what I tried to do, because Walt let you know if he was unhappy about something. He was a good boss, and that's what a good boss does. He lets you know where the boundaries are, and kind of encourages you. But no. So anyway, I really liked Cruces. I left for 4 years because I kind of got dead end on money, and I came back in '86 and decided I was going to hang on for dear life, and I have.
Great.
Wow. And so, what would you say is? So I mean, I'm sure you've been in some crazy games. Over the years, it's probably hard to pick one, but what were some atmospheres, I guess, in either football or basketball that stand out to you?
Well, let me tell you about some crazy things that happened to Seth Greenberg in the Pan Am Center. How's that? Would you settle for that?
Yeah.
As far as atmospheres, the atmosphere at the Arizona Bowl when the Aggies won in 2017 was amazing. I'll come back to Seth in a second. That was incredible. The atmosphere in the Pan Am Center the night the Aggies beat UNLV was a sold out crowd. Was amazing.
Yep.
When they beat Larry Bird in '78, that was amazing too. And then over in Phoenix, I'll tell you what it was crazy was when the Aggies had so much success in Vegas at the tournament there, and Aggies would have hundreds of fans that would go to Vegas and really celebrate. And that was great to see. It was fun to see because everyone's having a great mood. What I would do is after they played in the Orleans Arena, and that's connected. It's part of the hotel, and so you can go back to your room and avoid the casino if you want to, or you can go through the casino. Well, I call this the perp walk. After the Aggies won, I would take the equipment through the casino because here's our fans, and they're all happy, and they're happy to see me and top of the world. And so that was kind of fun to see all that. The other thing is, and this I almost started crying. I really did. Over to Tucson, we did a coach's show the night before from a bar, Gentle Ben's, I think it was called, in Tucson. And they were so we set up the equipment to do over the internet to do the show, and then set it up in the afternoon and came back. I think and I get there and our fans are they fill the bar. I don't think there's anyone in the bar that isn't a Nagy fan, and they're happy and they're excited. And I almost started crying. I was so happy for them to finally have a moment in football where they can be happy and they can be proud to be Aggie fans. And this was before the game, a day before the game, but they're there and they made it. And honestly, I never thought I'd ever get to do a bowl game. I'm fortunate to have done 3, but at that, prior to that, the Aggies were hopeless in football and came close a couple times and couldn't get over the hump, and had a winning year, but there were only a few bowl games anyway. So that was really, and the coach's show went fine. Well, as far as crazy things, Seth Greenberg had the worst luck of any coach that I know of that's ever come to the Pan Am Center. He came as an assistant initially with a fellow named Joe Harrington, was the Long Beach State coach. Then Harrington went to Colorado, and Seth came in, was promoted. And back then, I would do an interview if the coaches agreed to. I'd like to do an interview with the visiting coach for the pregame show, and they just they always would say, I think would always say yes, because it was not. It was just the standard happy sappy interview kind. I mean, it was there were legitimate questions, but it wasn't putting anyone on the spot. Well, anyway, so I got to know these guys a little bit. Well, okay, so one time Seth comes in, he gets the mumps. He can't go to the game, and so he has to stay home at the hotel, the Holiday Inn, which was, I don't know why they stayed there, but there's or the Hojos, Howard Johnson's on Valley, and it was like, oh golly, I guess they didn't have much of a budget. So he stayed there and had to listen to me doing the game, and of course they got beat. The next year, they had we installed what people called the Pete-O-meter. It was like supposed to be a sound meter, that was the Pistol Pete logo with the gun, with the gun extended, and smoke was supposed to come out of it when the people got excited. Anyway, I didn't come up with that idea, but anyway, so okay, so Citizens Bank paid for it, and which was a promotional thing for them. Sorry, okay, this way. And so the night that we played Long Beach State, they've installed it, and they can't get the mix right. So soon, before too long, it's like we're in a smoky poker hall or something, because it just keeps spewing smoke out. Another night, Seth is back. I can't believe it. And it's at the end of the game, and it's tight. And the Aggies have the lead, I think, by maybe 1 or 2. And it's about done. Well, back then, Pistol Pete, the mascot, could shoot blanks in his gun. So the game's coming down to the end. Long Beach has the last shot. Pistol Pete, perhaps prematurely, shoots off the gun as the Long Beach State's going to try to get the last shot off. Of course, whether that affected or not, I don't know, but they missed it. And then so that happened to Seth. And then the final one, which was the most bizarre, was what I called the greaseboard game. This was 80. It was Neil's last year. Neil McCarthy's last year would have been.
Yeah, that would have been 97, 96, 97.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yes, that sounds right.
I was on the beat at the time.
Okay, because the Aggies were not having a good year. They'd lost. They were on probation, and they didn't have a very good team. I mean, they were okay, but they weren't not like what they had a losing record, and they were coming off a road loss at Fullerton, and Fullerton was like at the time the worst program in that year. So the Aggies had lost on the road to Fullerton. We're coming back home to play Long Beach State on Big Monday. Now, Big Monday was, that was a big thing. Because
back in the day.
Yeah, there was not a lot of TV. I mean, there was some TV, but it was like Big East, Big Ten, and then Big West. Does that sound right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But the Big West started at 10, and the Aggies are going to play Long Beach State. Long Beach State was the number 1 team in the league. And the Aggies are coming home off of this kind of loss, and the year's dragging on. Well, comes time for the game, and Long Beach State goes down to warm up or whatever. They come back to the locker room, and someone has written on the locker room. I want to see if I can get this right. Get ready for the beating of your life, you. And then it refers to Seth's religious faith dash bastard. Okay, abbreviates his faith, and I don't want to say that word. But people can figure it out. It was a religious slur, and so which upset him, and of course he was mad, and which legitimately, and so the Aggies come out and they just blow out Long Beach State. It was amazing. And so Seth was very upset afterwards, legitimately, and talk more about that, and how horrible this was, and so this is obviously a different kind of unfortunate happening than the other ones. So anyway, the university was of course very embarrassed, and people in town were very upset, and time goes on, and no one ever figured out what happened. The thing that was odd to me, and there may have been a resolution, but it's never been definitively proved. I thought it was odd that no one in the Aggie camp was combative about this. And no one really that I was aware of was, if they were anti-Semitic, they didn't show it. And I'm not saying that people aren't anti-Semitic, but there was no obvious person who would do this sort of hateful thing on the staff or in that milieu. Not that I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but it didn't make sense. Plus, it wasn't like it was Vegas and the Aggies and number 1 versus number 2. It was number 7 versus number 1. Well, then a year or two later, I'm not sure I'm going to get the name right, but a writer for the Times who was on the beat at that time, and I can't remember his name, talked to a fellow who was on Seth's staff, an assistant coach who I want to say his last name was Reed, maybe. And kind of said, I understand you're the one that put that on the grease board. And the coach kind of didn't say no. Anyway, kind of a long story and not as happy as the other ones, but poor Seth had to, and of course the university was ashamed of that, and I'm not justifying anything, but it appeared it may have been that someone thought this was going to be a prank that they might have played on Seth or something just to get him going. That to me, that makes more sense than to think that someone was that hateful, because there had never been an incident before that or since that in terms of racial hate or so. I guess what I want to say is Las Cruces is better than that. And that was just kind of a weird thing that maybe we'll never know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, I covered New Mexico State in the early 2000s, around 2002, and I ended up meeting my wife there. My sister-in-law is Mari Sanchez.
Oh,
Okay. You remember her?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Remember when she was being recruited.
What's that?
I remember when she was being recruited.
Yeah, I guess she walked on.
Yeah, Hazelton coached her, right? Doug Hazelton?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, of course, I'm going to get killed by my family if I don't ask this question, but what do you remember about those years that she was playing and about her in particular?
Can you give me a year time frame?
2003.
I'm not strong on years with women's basketball there.
I think it was on 2003, early 2000s. I think they got beat by like Western Kentucky and like I think that, you know what? That was the year that one of the coach got fired.
Nikki Bryant. I remember.
Wasn't Nikki Bryant? It was another coach that got fired for an incident that happened on the court, and so that they were, I guess they were. Elmer Chavez is the one that took over.
Oh yeah, well that was Nikki Bryant. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Elmer thought he was Elmer. Yeah, Elmer Chavez. Hadn't thought about him. Actually, I was thinking about him the other day because we're down in Lafayette, Louisiana, going somewhere, and he's driving one of the vans, and he stops in the middle of the street for no reason. That was Elmer. Anyway, I remember that the players hated Nikki Bryant. She gave me the furniture out of her office because she was just getting rid of it, so she just gave it to me. This doesn't really follow anything about Mari, I'm afraid. But she's in our Hall of Fame, is she not?
She is. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. And look, I'll be honest. I don't retain a lot other than that controversy. And if you could tell me some players, but she was after Anita Maxwell, maybe? Or before
yeah, she played, was it Princess Moore?
Okay. Princess Moore and Cinnamon Garrett and those teams.
Yes, them. That was the team. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, no, I remember those because those were pretty good teams. But there was a fan was unhappy one time and threw a chair down the from the
Bobby Knight style
center over something that the coach had done. It was someone's mom, but anyway.
Well, what's funny is that there's a photo. We have photos, and anyway, you are interviewing Mari for the radio, and she's talking. Well, her sister, my wife, is behind her making faces. Making all these different faces. I have to send that to you because you will get a kick out of it. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
But also during that time, Coach Henson was in his second time there at New Mexico State, and they were certainly, pretty good team there for a little bit. I can't remember what they did that year, but it was memorable to have him back, and I certainly learned a lot about basketball with him there.
Well, his first year, Aggies went 500, 16-16. And the next year, they went to the NC2A tournament, 98-99. And that was that's one of my favorite teams. That year, they brought in Northeast Illinois, which is a school in Chicago, dropped sports. And they brought in Davino Hines and Billy Keys and Zach Norvell and then a guy named Gerald Moore, who didn't play much, but Eric Channing, I think, was a freshman that year.
Yeah.
Eric wound up being the top men's scorer in history. And Aaron Brote was around, and Miko Nopola, who lives in town still, is a bank branch manager now. And Brad Bester, a guy who also came in from Northeast Illinois. Brad is from Wisconsin, and he was a good 3-point shooter then. So they kind of had this. That was 98, 99 team, and they came together. Of course, coach knew what to do. Thomas Trotter was the big recruiter then, and that was a year where they went to Alaska, played in the tournament up there, and
shootout.
yeah, and won and lost and won, I think. I stayed with football. I didn't go up there on that trip because I'd been to Alaska, and I think football had some game I wanted to do or something, or maybe I just didn't want to go back to Alaska. I don't remember exactly now. I just don't recall. But the thing that also sticks in my mind was that I just really liked these guys, and they were fun guys, but they were also serious about playing well. Which, I mean, I don't mean that they were straight laced, but they had fun when they could, but then they got back into it. So the Aggies had been beaten twice that year by Boise State, and beaten by like 20 both times up there and at home, and just looked just helpless doing it. So then they played Boise State in the championship of the Big West tournament in Reno, and they were staying. I don't remember. We were staying in kind of a dumpy hotel, and I had a habit. I would go down to the base to the like the sandwich shop on the first floor and get a corned beef sandwich if we won. So we did. So then first night corned beef, second night corned beef. I went to had corned beef before the game on the championship game, and so the Boise fans were real arrogant, at least in their hotel. I'm sure that's why we won, because of the corned beef. But anyway, Coach Henson probably had nothing to do with it. But there's some Boise fans, and they're, we're going to win, and we're going to go in the NCAA. We're sorry for you guys. And I said, look, it's hard to beat someone 3 times in a row. Oh, yeah, blah, blah. Well, the Aggies win. And won, I mean, by 7 or 8. It wasn't just some fluke thing. So then they go to New Orleans and play in the NCAA tournament, and they're tied with Kentucky at halftime. And then Kentucky said, all right, let's go. And so they won by quite a bit. But that was the next year. The Aggies moved into the Sun Belt, and were like a buzzer shot away from going on to the championship of that tournament that year, and didn't quite make it. And then, things kind of coach things kind of slipped a little bit, and then eventually coach did get sick, and but 04-05 was his last year, and then Reggie came in, and on and on and on.
So what are you going to be your plans now once you officially retire? What are you looking forward to doing?
Well, the radio show has talked to me about doing a sports show from 4 to 5 Monday through Friday on Kobe, the station where I started, because they own that now. So I said, yeah, because they let me do what I want, because no one really knows sports. So I figured I'd have guests and take calls, but probably mostly guest driven. I wanted to do a podcast a couple of years ago, interviews with former players. And at the time, Learfield was the rights holder, and they said, no, you can't do that, because anything you do, we sort of have, even though I didn't work for them, they claimed they had sort of intellectual property control or something, which I didn't. I thought was a bunch of hooey, but I thought, it's not worth fighting over, because it wasn't like I was going to be pulling in, a huge amount. It was just easier not to do it. So I'm gonna go back to that. And I used to write a column. I was in the Bulletin for a while, then the Sun News for a while, and so I thought I'd go back to the Bulletin and start there, and see if they wanted to do it, write a column, and then I don't know. I think projects like that will probably keep me busy enough, and so that's kind of my plan. And so that's kind of and maybe the other opportunities will present themselves.
Good. Well, that sounds like a full slate, really.
Yeah.
You can do all that. You'll be busy.
Yeah.
You'll be plenty busy.
Yeah. So
Jack,
before we leave, you're going to give us your top 5 Aggie moments? Top 5 in 45 years.
Well, okay, maybe not what you're looking for here, but here's the 5. Well, I would say my first game was at Aggies at Drake. Aggies were behind 29-16 in football now, and came back to win 30-29. That was let's say number 5.
Yeah.
And no, let's see, number 4, probably the night the Aggies beat Larry Bird and Indiana State in '78. That was kind of one of those things where you just hope, I hope you can do it. And I really try to be objective, but you can't not be emotionally kind of internally rooting for your team, even though you want to be objective. That might be number 4. Number 3 would be the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl, because that was one of those. That was incredible. I'm driving over to that game, and I'm just completely at peace in my mind. I'm excited for the game, but I'm just completely tranquil. I'm thinking, I'm actually going to do a bowl game for New Mexico State.
Yeah.
They get close to the stadium. Here's some Aggie fans. Okay, there's going to be some people here. And as they got closer, there were more and more fans. And it was like a home game, which was incredible. So that's number 3. Number 2 would be, I don't remember the year exactly, but it was in Las Vegas when Marvin Menzies was the coach. He let me cut down a piece of the cord after they won the tournament. And he allowed me to do that. And then I would say number 1 was this year. I'm out at the practice field before the last football game, which happened to be against UTEP. And I'm waiting to interview a couple players, I think, for the pregame show. And coach, the practice wraps up, and Coach Sanchez allows me or asks me to speak to the team, which I did. I mean, I didn't have anything prepared, and so he let me do that, and it was very emotional. He was very kind to let me do that, and then they let me do the breakdown, which I guess is when they say, Aggies on 3, Aggies, and then when they like that, and which is really to be included, like those 2 things, to be included like that is such a kind gift, because it's like saying, okay, we accept you in our club. And I guess having been able to be objective and tell it accurately and still be included and accepted and respected by that, I would say that was probably my top one.
Awesome.
Well, definitely respected all time and forever. You've been a great addition to New Mexico State athletics, the city of Las Cruces, and the world of sports, radio nationally as well. So congratulations, Jack.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Jordan, Matt. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And, I'll get you that game, George. The outcome won't be what you want, but if you want to, enjoy it, I can get that to you.
Well,
and I'll send you those pictures. You'll laugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
James Furby, you'll remember him.
Yep. Block kick leader.
Yeah, he played at Alamogordo, so we played against each other quite a bit. So he sends me a little CD of the game we played our senior year, which was like the only time they ever beat us. But that's the one he sends me, and so that's about the only copy I have. Other than that, the only other one was losing the state championship. So, I have all these great CDs of all these terrible games. So
humble makes pure, George. Humble makes pure.
Exactly.
Well, thanks a lot, Jack.
My pleasure.
All right, Jack. Take care. We'll see you down the road.
See you.